Good evening, everyone. John Lanning with ICM CH-54 again with another inbox review. This is a kit which a good number of people have been waiting for a while, especially after the manufacturer announced the 1/35th scale and 1/32nd scale of this particular kit here. They finally released it 1/72nd scale. It's made its way to shores. I got mine like about a week or two ago. So anyway, this is for a particular oddity when it comes to aircraft because of the look of this particular aircraft here. So, and it's pretty big. So, this is what we're looking at here. Sorry about that. ICM's CH-54 Tarhe, or known as Sky Crane. This is 72nd scale. As you can notice, it's a pretty big box. So, anyway, they just got released. I'm pretty sure it's, some of your favorite detailers like Sprue Brothers and Squadron and all them. They should have got these by now. I was looking at the prices as well. I ordered mine directly from Ukraine, and well, I remember when I stated concerning my issue with buying kits for over $100. Technically, I did buy for under $100, but with shipping and all that, it came up to slightly above that, with the taxes and import fees and all that. So, but I'll cover that here in a little bit here. So anyway, this is a kit that a lot of us have been waiting for. It's been released by a couple other manufacturers in 72nd scale, in particular Aurora and Revell. The Aurora kit and Revell kit came out back in the 1960s. The Aurora kits stopped in 1977, leaving the Revell kit, which was released numerous times, but the last time was in 2007. So, yeah, it's about time to get another kit out the market there. And this one's got some improvements over the old Revell kit. So, anyway, CH-54. Known officially as Tarhe, but everybody calls it the Sky Crane. It's an ungainly, unusually looking aircraft. It's one of the highest lifters. The aircraft can lift over 25,000 pounds. And, first flight was in May of 1962. It started entering service in June of 1963 in the U.S. Army. Immediately deployed to Vietnam, where it was used as a lifting helicopter. And also it had a special mission with the armored cav, I should say, the 1st Cavalry Division. They used it to carry the Mark 121, what they call the Daisy Cutter bomb, which was used to basically clear fields for helicopter landings. Plus, it was also one heck of a headache giver. They called it the Excedrin, just for a joke. But anyway, it carried on that mission until later on during the war, when the Mark 121 was replaced by the BLU-82, which was carried by the C-130. And eventually it completed its tour in Vietnam, so to speak. And eventually, back in the 80s, was, brought back to, with the Army there, started being disseminated to Army National Guard units. Finally retired in 1993. So, anyway, there's like 8 states which got the Tarhe for their National Guard units: Georgia, Nevada, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, Mississippi, Alaska, Alabama, and Kansas. So anyway, as I stated, 93 it was taken out of service. However, it has gotten a second life. It is currently used for fighting for wildfires and also for lifting equipment for Ericsson, which basically they got the manufacturing rights. I don't know if they're actively building any more of them, but it's reported that there's over 100 in service. So anyway, about the manufacturer, ICM. ICM is from the Ukraine, and which there's a good number of manufacturers from the Ukraine right now. Sorry about that. I can move around a little bit here. So anyway, I call it one of the OG manufacturers because they've been around since the 1990s. They were around with A model, and for a lot of people that we're looking for Soviet era military aircraft. A model was one of the only choices at the particular time period, but we also call them A monster because the molds were kind of horrendous. But if you wanted a Yak 36 or a Yak 25, A model was the only manufacturer that made those kits. But you had to withstand the big clunky molds and the sometimes not so clear parts when you were building one of them. But over time, there were more manufacturers. Condor came on the market. I remember Condor when it came out in the 1990s. They took a shot at somewhat decent aircraft, but then ICM came around, and of course they started off, and just like any other manufacturer back in the 1990s, they started off kind of rough, and then they improved over time. Right now, they're probably one of the biggest model kit manufacturers in Ukraine. But since then, a lot of other great manufacturers have come up, and you got to be amazed at the way Ukraine is come out with such great products, especially the particular time in which it's stuck in right now. You got great model manufacturers such as ClearProp, Models Vit, Mini Art, Masterbox, big plane kits, Door Wings, Rodin, which I think they started off the same time as ICM. They used to be known as Toco at first, but then they changed their name to Rodin. And then, ResKit. Now, ResKit, up until now, has not made model kits. They're mostly resin accessories for, aircraft bombs, missiles, stuff like that. And they made some great product. And let me tell you, I've got a lot of the ResMed stuff. But also, possibly either later on this year or next year, they are due to release the first 3D printed model kit of an A7E. Yes, I believe it's an A7E or A7D. It's an A7 Corsair kit. They're supposed to release that. It's all 3D resin printed. It is not plastic. It's not plastic mold. It is printed. They did have one on display some time back. Let's say that some people thought it needed more work. So, and that's part of the reason why it's not going to be released for quite a while. They're probably improving, the printing techniques and all that. So anyway, enough of me yakking here. Let's go ahead and take a look and see what's inside this box here. Okay, so here we go here. Let's go ahead and unbox. It's going to fight me. Okay. Remove the sprues. Okay, a couple parts got free from the sprues. I'll make sure I don't lose them. Oh, there we go. All right, so here we are. Okay, one set of clear sprues. Yeah, nicely shot, nicely done. Don't see any scratches, short shot, or anything in them. Oops. Let's see here. Get that, and then we have 2, 3, 5 gray sprues. So let's go with the first one here. Okay, so this right here is basically the fuselage, front end, top, bottom, sides. You kind of notice the construction of this, right? It's no longer split down the middle like in the old days. Basically, the way that, and I've seen this with the Academy, I've seen it with a few others here, they're trying to do construction along panel lines so that you don't have to use much filler or any filler at all. And you don't have to do any type of sanding to get rid of the panel lines, and which is great. Now, of course, the disadvantage is more parts, but again, what you may end up losing putting this together, you'll end up gaining from not having to do all that sanding and filling and all that, and then rescribing panel lines and all the fun stuff that sometimes we don't really take much joy into doing. So anyway, so I think these are for the top of the prop there. There's the nose, and look at that detail there too. That is beautiful there. So, and then you see right on the fuselage there. There we go. Look at the detail of the fuselage. And then here's the other side where you see all the plumbing right here. So that's the first sprue. Second huge sprue is more of the fuselage stuff. You got your tail rotor. I believe these are part of the legs here. So these are for the engines. More legs. And the second one. Third one. I'm not going to try. That's a lot of stuff up on here. So I'll let you take a look and see what we got on here. It's an awful lot to try to explain here. So, you can get a close up of some of that detail there too. And then two of these sprues here, which includes the main rotors. Maybe one bit of contention here is that the main rotors are straight, so you might have to whip out the heater, the blow dryer, or find a way to heat them to get them to bend down a little bit. If you got it in the landed position. So more of the engines here. You got some of the main wheels. I'm pretty sure there's some parts for the intakes, the intake filters. So, but you got three of the main rotors here. I'll take a look at some of that right there. And of course, it's on the second one as well. There's two of the D's. So you have that. Here are the decals. So you got at least one Army version. We'll take a look at the instructions, see what it says. I think there's two Army versions and one Georgia National Guard version right here. So decals look pretty good. I've noticed on the Army National Guard insignias right here, I don't know if you can really see it right here, but you can see it's slightly off. You can see a little bit more white on this side than you do on the opposite side. So the decal is slightly off on at least this portion right here. Everything else looks pretty good. Let me see here. So you can find the cockpit parts. I'm wondering if I don't know if the control panel is detailed or not, because I know there's some decals there. Of course, these days with manufacturers, sometimes they'll detail the cockpit. Okay, there we go. There's the control panel right here. So as you can see right here, it is detailed. So you have your choice here of decal. or detail. So, and I'm pretty sure I don't see the. Let's see here. There's a cockpit floor right there. So it looks like the cockpit might be slightly detailed without having to use the decals. So we have that. Okay. And here are the instructions. Starts off as a cool full color booklet. Color callouts are in ICM colors. Now, ICM is pretty much doing the same thing just about everybody else is doing these days, launching their own acrylic paint lines. So all their color callouts are on ICM. So, and when it comes to FS colors and stuff like that, unfortunately, as you take a look on there is no FS colors. So you would have to do some matching when it comes to matching ICM to whatever paint line you might be using, whether it be the old Model Masters or whether it would be Hataki or AK or anything like that. So, and that's a little bit unfortunate because ICM paint, especially here in the West, isn't really that well known. And of course, it seems to me like in Europe, it seems like AK and some of the others, have pretty much taken over, so to speak. Now, there are other paint lines. Taleri's got a paint line. Of course, you got Humbrol. But it seems like the newer ones, especially coming from Spain, and there's a lot of praise for them as well, which is part of the reason why they seem to be cutting out. I'm basically outselling everybody else out there in Europe. Over here, right now, I don't think there's a true dominant paint line, but there is not much of anything made in North America. Most of it's imported from Europe. Of course, you've got you got your manufacturers from over on the other side there too, from Japan. But America doesn't have a real big manufacturer because testers of Model Masters gone bye. So, but anyway, here's the instructions. So it's all black and white exploded views like everything else, or like most of everybody else. So, but here's your sprue maps. This is all just so big here, and sitting there trying to do this, get all the information there. Of course, it begins with the cockpit. And there's your, right there is your crane that mounts inside the fuselage. So fuselage assembly, more fuselage assembly, even more fuselage assembly. So more fuselage assembly, fuselage and motor assembly here. Or I'm going to say motor assembly, but the crankcase assembly for the main motor. More assembly here for fuselage. These are your engines right here. And this particular one here, it does have the filters. So, unlike the Aurora and the Revell helicopters, which do not have the filters, this one does have it. So, it's a little bit more updated to 80s, 90s standard. So, there's your filters being installed. Looks like more of, is it the landing gear? It might be the landing gear. Or it mounts on the landing gear, but not exactly landing gear, or along the side here. There's a lot of detail in this kit, so but more landing gear here, more of your steps. Okay, more your tail rotor, your main rotor assembly, and it looks like it's starting with the final assembly on this page. And now is there masks in here? I don't remember seeing any masks. Oh, okay, never mind. You can use this for masking as a template. So you can make your masks using these right here, so you don't have to like mask over the deal and cut it with a with your knife there and possibly scratch up the plastic. So and then here we go with the paint schemes. So this is the first one here, and this one is from the 273rd Aviation Company in Vietnam in 1968. So you have this one here. 101st Airborne Division in Vietnam in 1968. This is this one here. 295th Aviation Company in Frankfurt, Germany, 1976, which is this one right here. And with the decals here, you saw the red crust. That's this unit right here. And the last one is for the Georgia Army National Guard in the 1980s. So there's your 4 paint schemes. I thought it was 3, but it's 4. So anyway, and then here's a flyer for their paint. So I don't know if any U.S. distributors for this as of yet. Maybe it will happen, maybe it won't. So, and then you got their call it numbers for their paint line here. So, but anyway, we'll get back. I'll let you know my final thoughts. Okay, my thoughts. Well, it's got a lot of advantages, but then there's some disadvantages. The biggest disadvantage, of course, is going to be price. I mean, this thing is well over $100. As I stated, I looked on, Sprue Brothers and Squadron, and their prices are going about roughly 114 to close to $120. Now, I got mine with shipping and the terrace paint and all that for 107. But then again, it had to be shipped from Ukraine. I had to wait about a couple weeks for it. But yeah, it is a little bit of a discount compared to what we see in the U.S., but not by much. I mean, I probably saved like maybe $8 or $9. So, and I'm not including the sales tax and the shipping from Sprue Brothers and Squadron. So maybe $20, but that's really about it. So, but the other disadvantage here too, and now again in the future, that's more likely going to change. But the other, disadvantage when it comes to the Revell and the Aurora kits is the universal military pod, the big old pod you see that's mounted underneath here. It flies around with. This, as you see in it, this kit does not have it. However, ICM has re-released their 32nd scale kit several times with the pod, without the pod. They're releasing a Ericsson Skycrane version with the firefighter equipment mounted on it. I can see that happening with these as well. Plus, on top of that too, they do have a 35th scale kit of the pod and the landing mats in Vietnam, and we could probably see something like that too. So, this will probably be out for about a year, and then probably in about a year or two, we'll see a release of the kit, possibly with the pod with it. I do remember, I know the Aurora kit did have the pod with it, so the Revell kit also had an artillery piece along with it. And if I remember correctly, too, I mean, you used to be able to, have the crane on the inside where, you had a string to roll down there, and you actually pick up the artillery piece along with it. But it doesn't. This kit doesn't have any of that. Now, of course, I'm willing to assume that when they do release it with the pod, it's going to be a little bit more. Now, the biggest complaint I have, again, is going to be with price. But then again, it's an issue with the smaller, the fact that we unfortunately have to accept the fact that modeling's become more expensive. So the days of finding a great kit for even under $40 these days, I think those days are long gone, and that sucks. such a days in which we had a pretty decent model kit you can get for like 10 or 20 bucks. But, I remember back in the 90s where I thought those new Hasegawa F-14 Tomcats were, the high-tech versions, the ones that we see all the time there, that, I thought 20 bucks for one of those. I thought that was expensive, but, now they're running around 60 bucks each. And, it makes you happy if you have some that you bought way long ago and now you can save on the price. But, yeah, modeling's going to get more expensive. So, I mean, I might complain about the price of models every time I buy buy more models, stuff like that. But, again, that's just me clamoring for the old days of affordable kits. So, other than that, though, I mean, when it comes to the Aurora and the Revell kits, well, you've seen how beautifully set up this kit is. The detail is much more, it's very crisp, good panel lines. The construction is going to be different. It's going to take you longer to build this, but in long run, it's going to save you from filling and sanding, which is great. So again, yes, this does beat out the other two. Now, not to say that if you have the other, if you have the Aurora kit and the Revell kit in your stash, if you don't want to buy replacement for it, then you're not going to go wrong. Okay, I'm not going to start putting on those kits. In fact, I know I've got a Revell kit in my stash as well with the pod and everything else, and maybe one day I'll build it. I don't know, but if you're looking for the best, this is the best. But you can't really worry yourself about the Revell kit or the Aurora kit, because if it comes to being cheap / affordable, whatever we're going to call it, you're not going to get it with this kit unless you can find it secondhand at, let's say, a model for something like that. And eventually this will be heading out to secondhand stalls at the model shops, or not model shops, but the model contests. But that probably will be for a while. And they're probably still going to fetch a pretty good price. So anyway, looking at the parts and stuff like all that, the cockpit and all this other stuff here too, the fact that this is much more updated to a current version, of course, as I stated, the Aurora kit and the Revell kit came out in the 1960s. I don't think they did much to accurize it when they released them for more modern days. Most model companies don't bother doing that anyway. They just re-release and re-release and re-release, and they don't add anything to it. So, and I know for a fact that the Revell kit and the Aurora kit did not come with the filters, which we've seen on most of the sky cranes in later years, back in the 80s and 90s. So this is the most up-to-date version that there is on the market right now for 72nd scale builders. So I'll give it, I'm going to say 8.5 and 9. The other issue I have, of course, that I showed you was on the decals, where the National Guard, the emblems were off a little bit when it came to the white discs in the back. I don't know if anybody that's come up with the aftermarket for this yet, for decals. I would like to, because, as I stated, I'm a fan of building National Guard stuff, Air National Guard, Army National Guard. 8 states actually used these aircraft up until 93. I think it was the last unit that retired them. And I know, of course, I showed you this one had markings for Georgia. The last Revell boxing, I think it had markings for Pennsylvania. And I believe there was another state, I don't remember. But it would be nice if somebody did come out with markings for Army National Guard. I wouldn't be surprised if Print Scale whips out a set for this. And of course, being that the Army was the only user of the type other than Erickson Crane. So hopefully they'll come out with something like that. But anyway, Yeah, I like this kit a lot. Unfortunately, price is what really kills it for me. But it's a great kit. So if you have any questions or complaints, please list them below. If you built this, I probably won't be able to get to this for a while. So if you actually built this, if you have some tips or if there's some issues or something like that, post them below too. I'm sure the people that see these reviews would like to know if anybody had issues when it comes to construction or this or that. So, but anyway, eventually I'll put out some more reviews probably later on here. But enjoy your modeling and good night, folks.